Yo, what's going on, Epic 7 fam? I'm Sue, and with the Operation Catch Zieg event today, players have the ability to purchase a ticket, which will give them a random Moonlight 5-star Dark Hero. Just like I did with the Light Heroes, in this video, I'm going to spend 20 to 30 seconds talking about each hero, where they're used, and how to build them, so that way you know exactly where the character you pulled stands. Make sure to use the timestamps down below to jump to whichever character you want to talk about, and without any further ado, let's just get into it, starting with the first one, which is Apocalypse Ravi. 2 years ago, Apocalypse Ravi was the best PvP character in the entire game, but has since fallen on some hard times, which is regrettable because she doesn't really have any PvE usage. So essentially how Apocalypse Ravi works is she gets a bunch of free stats for her passive War God's Might. Every time you hit her, she heals herself and gets combat readiness, and whenever anyone dies in a fight, her S3 Deliverance gets supercharged, and if this move actually secures a kill, it will revive a random ally. Her S1 has built-in lifesteal and injury, just everything you could possibly want in a bruiser. Her stat line is also just incredibly good. Overall, perfect character. The problem is that she is super weak to injury, and I want to say after Worlds 2023, when she was very strong, they reworked Death Dealer Ray and also introduced Urban Shadow Shu, which are incredibly powerful injury characters, and also faster characters that have seal abilities like New Luna came out, and also other characters like Harseti that are commonly played on injury, just really make it hard to be Apocalypse Ravi in 2025. There's nothing really inherently wrong with the kit, it's just the metagame really doesn't favor characters like her. Most new releases just could easily punish the character, so she probably needs some kind of rework or maybe small tweak so that way she could kind of rise to prominence once again. After Apocalypse Ravi, we come to Bystander Hwayoung, who you cannot get from your ticket during this event, but for completeness sake, I decided to include her in case you picked her up on a Covenant or a Galaxy Summon in the last month or so since the E7 Origin event started. So Bystander Hwayoung is, in my opinion, a very underrated bruiser in the current PvP format, and that is because of her passive here, Divine Vessel. Number one, it makes her immune to all debuffs, so that's super strong versus things like Hellion Lua, Death Dealer Ray, and more. And then two, it also serves as an anti-aggression tool, because if your opponent doesn't focus down Bystander Hwayoung first, she will counter with her S3 Sura Reeve the Skies on a random enemy. And this thing is a pretty strong single target attack that does bonus damage to light element heroes, and if it secures a kill, it also inflicts extinction, which means they cannot revive it. Against aggressive teams, this can basically outright kill a lot of characters. Most people really don't like this skill because it doesn't do as much damage as they want. They want it to just one-shot tanks. It doesn't really one-shot tanks, but it does do respectable damage. The fact that the character is very tanky, right? She gets a bunch of bonus defense based on her attack, right? And she has a very good S1 for counter set. The fact that you could build her as a counter set bruiser and just know that they can't control her and they have to deal with her first, otherwise you're just going to easily win the game, is why I like the character so much, why I think she is super underrated right now. After Bystander Hwayoung, we come to Dark Corvus, who regrettably is probably the worst Moonlight 5-star in the entire game. This is like the Astromancer Elena for Dark units here at this point, so I'm sorry if this is the character you end up getting. First off, let's get this out of the way. He's basically worthless in PvE. How the character actually works, his ultimate Devil's Descent starts on a 7-turn cooldown. But if you actually get his ultimate Devil's Descent, you soul burn it, it does a ridiculous amount of damage based on his max HP. It probably one-shots most characters in the entire game if he has really high max HP, which is what you're going to build on. Problem is, just like with Apocalypse Ravi, injury is very strong, so therefore he doesn't really have a home. He used to be the best arena and guild war character in the entire game, and if you are a newer player that's not in like a top 100 or top 300 guild, there's a pretty good chance you could still use him to pick up a lot of kills in guild war and therefore rake in some extra mystic metal. So he does potentially have some use, but Harseti being everywhere and her being an injury unit, like those are the spots he's supposed to thrive in. Him being able to very easily be injured makes him just super difficult to use. Even though his passive Ruins Advent makes him immune to stun, you can still silence him, you can still sleep him, you can still provoke him. It's just a really hard character to use. It's just not his meta in PvP. After Dark Corvus, we come to Designer Lilibet. Designer Lilibet is a DPS cleanser hybrid. Essentially, how she works is whenever your opponent inflicts debuffs on your team, at the end of each of their turns, you get 10 fighting spirit here off of emergency stitching for every single debuff on your team. When you get to 100%, the meter will go back down to 0. You'll get a bunch of combat readiness, a defense buff, and immunity. And hopefully, if you take the turn, use the skill 3 model disqualification to do big damage to the enemy team, CR push your team, and most importantly, decrease debuff durations of all allies by 2 turns. So it's essentially a pseudo cleanse that gets rid of most debuffs. I say most because there are some like bombs that can't have their durations reduced, and therefore you won't actually cleanse it. And then her S1 is a defense break that will help with your primary damage dealer actually pick off stuff. Not like a super top tier PvP character, but she's very good versus characters like Harsetti, and she always finds a way to work her way into the metagame. She's like a solid role player in most metagames, and if this is the character you got, I would feel pretty content in knowing that I'm going to get a lot of mileage out of this character over the course of my entire E7 career. Next up, we come to Lone Crescent Bellona, and if you're familiar with Seaside Bellona, if that's the character that you took off your limited ticket in week 3 of the Operation Catch Zieg event, this character is very similar. The way I like to think about it, if you've ever played like Super Smash Brothers, how there's like Mario and then you have Dr. Mario, they have basically the same moveset but like slight variations. That's kind of what Lone Crescent Bellona is compared to Seaside Bellona. They have functionally similar kits in that if you hit their team, they counter with a big AoE attack, but Lone Crescent Bellona gets progressively more attack, does progressively more damage as the fight builds up, and instead of having a big AoE attack that has debuffs or can defense break stuff, instead she just has really strong single target attacks. So essentially you'll just sit there, if they hit you, you'll get a bunch of AoE counters, and then when it's her turn, you can cash in all of the accumulated damage you have for big DPS off the S1 or the S3. She also is guaranteed to crit on all of her moves if she actually lands the attack. Therefore, she's good against characters like Diane or Navy Captain Landy. Just like with Seaside Bellona, she's also fairly good in a lot of PvE content, primarily in like Abyss, I want to say, and then Nightmare Labyrinth. That's where she really excels. But most of the time, if Seaside Bellona is a valid choice, Lone Crescent Bellona could also work there. Maybe not Wyvern, but pretty much everything else. After Lone Crescent Bellona, we come to Lone Wolf Pair, which is the second character that is here for completeness sake that you cannot actually get off of your ticket. Lone Wolf Pair is just a multifaceted warrior that does nearly everything in PvP. She can open for your team. She has buffs that can help set them up for success. Her S3 here, Hound the Indolent. This thing here is also a cleanse, meaning she's very good versus debuffers, especially when she's on the artifact Sweet Miracle. Good damage on her S1 here, Bash, and the Soulburn makes it AoE, allowing her to counter a lot of very problematic characters like stealth characters, for example, or characters that you can't crit and you have to deal with fixed damage. She's just very good at that. Build paths on this thing are just crazy flexible. You could go slow and tanky, very fast, just well-rounded character, one of the best ML5s in the entire game as of the recording of this video. And most people have explored her for PvP applications, but I don't think we've really explored this character for PvE yet as a community. And considering how well-rounded she is, there's a chance that she actually has some applications there as well. So if you manage to pick this character up, pretty much congratulations, she's one of the best characters in the entire game. After Lone Wolf Para, we come to Martial Artist Ken, who is a counter-based bruiser that is meant primarily for PvP game modes. Essentially, how it works is anytime somebody crits your team, he will counter. So if they crit a ally on his team that's not him, he will counter here with Knockout, which is kind of like a light hitting attack that also provokes, that forces you to go into Ken on the next round. And if you actually crit Ken himself, he will counter with Dragon Flame, which is a massive single target attack, does tons of damage, and essentially that's kind of all he does. Your opponent tries to hit someone other than Ken, he says, no, 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 you gotta hit me. You hit him, he probably outright kills you if you're a squishy character, and his ultimate, the Coming of Azura, is just a hard-hitting AoE attack that has a defense break. You could potentially use him for some PvE content. I know people tell me all the time in the comment section that he's decent for Abyss, but I think there are much better options. He's primarily a very strong but niche counterpick character in PvP. Where I think most new players will really struggle with him is that he's very squishy and he's very prone to being controlled. So the really good builds are going to need high HP, high defense, and high effect resistance on top of having big attack. Again, niche, but very powerful hero. Next up, we come to Mediator Kawerik, aka Hand Guy, aka Mr. Swiss Army Knife. This character does a little bit of everything. His skill 1 here, Retribution, gives combat race not only to himself, but another ally, making it great for things like counter set or unity set if you want to build him in that way. His S2 Balance of Power is a full strip on a single target and an attack down, and also a barrier for your entire team. And his S3 Nature Restoration is one of the first big power creep skills we ever got in Epic 7. Assuming that this ultimate is off cooldown, he's basically immune to almost all debuffs unless they are like a 2-turn provoke or a 2-turn stun. He's basically immune to almost everything in the game, and since that is the case, he can't really be debuffed. He has this move basically always live. You can't stop him from using it. It's a full cleanse, immunity for your whole team, attack buff for your whole team. It basically says, stop all of that control nonsense that you are trying to do. My team is safe now. We have buffs, and now we're going to basically turn it around on you with this attack buff. We're supercharged on offense and just run stuff down. He's also one of the tankiest characters like in the entire game. Honestly, if Lone Wolf Payra and Laya never came out, this character would still be super, super top tier in PvP. I think he is very slept on. He's still a very, very good character. Pretty good in my experience against characters like Harseti, right? Because that character uses a lot of debuffs, has a lot of stuns. This character being so tanky means he could really thrive, I feel like, under those conditions. And he also has some good PvE usage as well, right? He's very, very good in Ancient Inheritance, which is a guild-based PvE game mode that comes up seasonally. So he's good in a lot of spots. Very strong character. Not top tier anymore, but definitely a high tier character for sure. After Mediator Kawerik, we come to the man himself, Straze. Straze is a tank buster that is designed to kill the highest health hero on the enemy team in PvP in one hit with his S3 Star Extinction. The problem with Straze is that he only has 109 base speed, which is average, and his defense and health are very below average for a warrior, meaning he has difficulty getting a turn, and he probably dies most of the time in one hit, making him very difficult to use in the current PvP format. That said, Star Extinction works on hunt bosses, and that's incredibly appealing to me. So the way that I play this character is I play him on a rage set with a 2-piece torrent offset, and I built teams around him that allow him to just kill every hunt in the game in under 40 seconds. He is by far the best hunt farming character in the entire game, and if you can build him with the right gear, I'm going to put the stat lines here on the side. You'll see it's very difficult to do for a new player, but if you can build that and then build whole teams around him for each specific hunt, you'll just be farming every hunt 40 seconds or less and just rake in a ton of materials, a ton of bookmarks, a ton of golds until your stamina and leaves hold out. Very, very underrated PvE character. I feel like every other content creator I watch doesn't really advocate for this character as a hunt character, but to me, he is the premium hunt clearing character in this game. After Straze, we come to Urban Shadow Shu, who is a bruiser that excels at injuring down bruiser and tank-based teams. She's basically the bane of slow players' existence. The way that she does that is off of this passive here, Wild Charge. At the start of each of her turns, she'll get this buff called Bzzzt that deals 2,000 fixed damage as injury to all enemies. And to help facilitate, take as many turns as possible and get as many of these fixed damage injury stacks as possible, you have Operation Cream Pastry, which speeds up her entire team and also can execute characters that have built up too much injury. To make her really, really annoying to deal with, her exclusive equipment not only speeds her up, which helps kind of stack up this injury even faster, but it makes her stealth at the end of each of her turns. One of the stronger PvP characters in the entire game. That's kind of the only real spot you could use her. Basically, if you see your opponent is playing a lot of knights, a lot of slow characters, Urban Shadow Shu is basically your girl. She's just single-handedly eliminated characters like Apocalypse Ravi and Dark Corvus from the metagame entirely. Alright, Next up, after Urban Shadow Shoot, we come to Abyssal Yufine, which I think is one of the best possible things that you could have gotten off of this ticket. Abyssal Yufine is a multifaceted knight that could do a little bit of everything, right? So she is a very good character that you could potentially build as a tank, but is primarily built as an AoE counter bruiser, thanks to the fact that she has built-in counter chance here on Inner Abyss, and it also doubles as a combat readiness reduction passive for your opponent. Just really, really strong. She's very tanky, does good damage. You're just going to sit there and wait, build up your stacks either by getting hit or countering with your S1 here, Dragon's Breath. And once your fighting spirit is full, you can use Frenzied Strike, her ultimate, push back the entire enemy team, do decent damage to them, strip all of their buffs, and then you'll go into this trauma state, assuming that you have over 2,000 defense. Once you're in trauma, she basically becomes like a Dark Knight, where she dies in one hit, but does massive amounts of single target damage to any character, allowing you to easily pick up a fight. So very good as a tanker or bruiser early on in a fight, and then you just go full sicko mode later on and just burst down any key targets to pick up the W. Just really, really good role player in almost any PvP composition. Very strong character overall. After Abyssal Yufine, we come to another one of the best characters that you could have pulled off of your ticket, and that is Fallen Cecilia, fresh off a new round of buffs. So Fallen Cecilia, for the longest time in Epic 7, was the best tank in the entire game. And then for about 2.5 years, she became largely irrelevant. And now she's back, and I'd argue, alongside Adventurer Raj, she might be the best tank in the entire game as of the recording of this video. So what makes Fallen Cecilia so strong here is this passive here, Strong Instinct. It's basically built-in protection set. So your whole team starts with a barrier just for Fallen Cecilia existing on your team, and it's a pretty sizable barrier at that. And at the end of each of Fallen Cecilia's turns, she will essentially trigger a Rise of the Monarch style effect, where she'll give a barrier to your lowest HP ally. And it also reduces the damage of additional damage and fixed damage effects by 50%. So good versus Seaside Bologna, very good versus Urban Shadow Shoot, who we just talked about. Really strong character. Also strong versus Renak, who is the current banner as I'm recording this video. Just very, very strong in those instances. And then her skill 3 strips all of your opponent's buffs, transfers all debuffs on Fallen Cecilia back to the enemy team, and gives your whole team a skill nullifier, and has the very, very valuable 100% provoke chance on her S1. Does literally everything you could possibly want your knight to do, your tank to do. My favorite tank in the entire game. Basically usable almost anywhere. Abyss, any PvE content you want, any PvP content you want. Fallen Cecilia is just always going to be a rock solid choice for those types of content. After Fallen Cecilia, we come to Arbiter Vildred. I don't think I really have to explain this one too much. Even if you're a newer player, you probably already know what this guy does. He's what most people recommend, I feel like, nowadays from the Moonlight Blessing. Just exceptionally strong AoE DPS that's good in Adventure, a lot of PvE content, and also pretty good in most forms of PvP. Right? Essentially, his S1 hits 2 targets, makes him very good for farming. S3 does a lot of damage, meaning that he can wipe out a lot of squishier teams in PvP, and again, also just very good for farming. And if he dies, it triggers Dark Contract, which will revive him, and if you have his exclusive equipment, he'll get a bunch of damage bonus as well, which will allow you to hopefully kill whatever you're fighting. Just rock solid character in most game modes. Not necessarily the best thing you could pull, but again, I would be happy if I pulled Arbiter Vildred and I didn't already have him. After Arbiter Vildred, we come to Closer Charles, who has a very strong kit for aggressive play, but he has one minor problem with him. But first, let's talk about the kit. So his S3 Descent is an AoE attack that seal pushes your entire team, gives your whole team attack buff, gives himself evasion buff, and it cannot trigger any counter attack skills. So that is a very loaded skill 3. On top of that, his passive Closer, whenever an ally other than him reduces an enemy's health under a certain threshold, he'll get a boost to his critical hit chance and critical hit damage, as well as a big combat readiness boost, and it'll turn his S1 elimination into a massive single target nuke, and this thing also has built-in lifesteal, which will help him survive. The problem with this character and his amazing kit is that he is cursed with the Scorpio Thief stat line, which is one of the worst in the entire game. Despite having decent health, he has one of the lowest defenses in the entire game, meaning he dies to basically a stiff breeze, and his speed at 113 is not terrible, but it's not nearly fast enough to capitalize on such an aggressive kit. He is so close to being good, but he's just very difficult to use. One of the best players in the entire game, Korean Jesus, this is his favorite character. He uses him to great success all the time on ladder, but that requires some really insane gear and some very outside the box thinking. So if you're dedicated to the character, you can make him work. Just know he is very, very difficult to use. I personally use him to farm the Asthmatic hunt, and if you're keen to see how that works, you can check out my Asthmatic 13 guide. I will link it down in this video's description. After Closer Charles, we come to Remnant Violet, aka God. No, I'm serious. That is what the actual community refers to him as, God. So the core mechanic of Remnant Violet is his passive concentration. He gets 50% evasion throughout the fight, and whenever he dodges, he gains 1 stack of focus. Now you're going to obviously put him on some kind of artifact that gives him another 20% evasion, so he'll have 70% chance to dodge. If he dodges, he gets a focus. When he uses his basic attack skill, which is hard as hell, he will also get a focus. Whenever he gets to 5 focus, he will immediately counter a random enemy with his S3 Massacre, which does ridiculous single target damage. It can outright kill characters in the entire game. So the reason why he is called God is if you believe in him and he dodges enough, he will just absolutely manhandle your entire enemy team. He'll just be massacring left and right, killing everything in his wake and sustaining off of the lifesteal set usually. Again, though, character is made of paper, and it's that 30%. If you don't dodge, right, that you get hit on that 30% chance, you just instantly die. But as long as you believe and you dodge, there's like nothing this character can't beat in PvP. And he's also pretty good, I feel like, in some hard PvE content. He just does ludicrous amounts of damage. Again, if you believe in the character, you're gonna get results with him. After Remnant Violet, we come to Briar Witch's Saria. Briar Witch's Saria's major selling point is in PvP. Her passive here, Witch's Curse, makes it so that nobody on either team can revive characters. So if you're playing against things like Ruel of Light or Destina or any of these characters that just resurrect when they die, Briar Witch's Saria is your girl. She also has built-in hit chance, making her good against dodge characters like the previous character we talked about, Remnant Violet. And then other than that, you just try to build her as fast as you possibly can with some good damage and effectiveness, and then use her S3 Curse Thorn to remove all of your opponent's buffs, hit them with unbuffable as well as defense break, and hopefully that sets up your team's offense for success. Her exclusive equipment gives her bonus speed, and she has a respectable starting speed as well, so you can use her as kind of like the core to your team's aggro, right? The core to your team's offense if you want to play a faster style in PvP. Just a very good character, I feel like, overall, if you're dedicated to that aggro life. If you're somebody that likes to play a little bit slower, more turn 2, more controlling, then the primary reason to play Briar Witch's Saria is, again, the anti-revive passive. After Briar Witch's Saria, we come to the final character that you cannot get in the ticket, and that is Hellion Lua. Hellion Lua is probably the best control character in the entire game right now. She is very fast at 120 speed. She is the tankiest ranger in the entire game by far, and her ultimate Lua's challenge is just ridiculous. It gets rid of your opponent's buffs, provokes everybody on your team, your opponent's team, gives defense buff to herself, and then when they attack her, they will then in turn get countered by the other 3 characters on your team, and those 3 counterattacks will do bonus damage, which can outright kill certain characters. And then also your team on top of it gets a combat radius buff. And then she just has the ability to provoke as well on her S1. Just the character in general is just very, very strong, very hard to beat. And if you have this character, you pulled her off of Covenants or Galaxy summons, and you're serious about PvP, this is probably the character you want to put your fastest gear on, or at least one of the ones you want to put your fastest gear on. Character is super, super top tier. One of the highest win rate characters in all game modes for PvP. After Hellion Lua, we come to Operator Secret, who about like a week or 2 ago, I would have said is the worst ML 5-star in the entire game. But the character is on the up and up. First, let's talk about why is Op Sig bad. She is bad because she is a damage dealer that has absolutely terrible stats. Like seriously, look at this stat line. 1079 attack is terrible for a damage dealer that scales off of attack. Health and defense are miserable. She'll basically die in 1 hit from a lot of things. And her speed, while fast, is not exactly that fast, right? As we talked about with like Closure Charles, 113 wasn't enough for him to be fast enough to do his job. The same problem occurs here with Operator Zieg. Now, her two defining skills here are Annihilation as well as Obliterate. So Annihilation is a single target attack that does a ton of extra damage if it targets something with a barrier, right? And if you get a kill, you get an extra turn on the person that had the barrier. And the S3 is an AoE attack that gives attack buff to your team and also pushes back your opponent and reduces their buff durations by 1 turn. And if they have barriers, it's guaranteed to push them back and reduce the buffs, right? It ignores effect resistance entirely. So Operator Zieg is hard to use and has very bad stats. But Protection Set, which gives your whole team a barrier, is on the rise, and Fallen Cecilia is one of the best tanks, if not the best tank currently as I'm recording this video. Which means that Operator Zieg, the character that is designed to stop Fallen Cecilia, must be on the rise. Now, that's not a guarantee that the character is good, it just means that the character, people are taking a look at it, and she might start to see some play again. Where I think that you're in luck if this is the character you pulled, is that back in January of 2025, they teased that this character was getting a buff or a rework very soon. And here we are in May as I'm recording this video, and it hasn't happened yet, but as this video, I'm recording it about a week or two from when I'm recording this video, there is another balance patch coming. So there's a very, very high chance that Operator Zieg could be on that balance patch. So if you got this character, right, I would say congratulations. Also, more evidence that this character is probably getting buffed is she is in the Galaxy Coin Shop right now in the shop alongside of Spirit Eye Celine, who just got buffed, alongside with Dragon King Shroon, who just got buffed. So they do these things months in advance. Again, there's a very high chance that if this is the character you pulled, you may have potentially hit the jackpot. We just don't know as of the time of me recording this video. After Operator Zieg, we come to Pirate Captain Flan. Now, this is a bit of a hard one to kind of describe. So, Pirate Captain Flan is based entirely around the bomb mechanic, which only really works in PvP. So, she's pretty much primarily a PvP character. Her S3 gives bombs to all of your opponents, right? Her S1 here detonates any bombs that are on characters. And then her passive here, Scourge of the Sea, whenever somebody attacks somebody that doesn't have a buff on the enemy team, she will use a little mini combat readiness push effect. So she kind of functions as like a bridge for aggressive or control teams. Like she slots kind of in that spot, right? If you want to play aggro or control, she's pretty good there. Now, the problem with Pirate Captain Flan is, well, 1, there are better control characters. 2, she's a little bit easy to answer. And most importantly, 3, the character needs the artifact Star of the Deep Sea in order to actually be good. And that's a limited artifact. And if you didn't take it from the week 3 limited artifact selector, like, you're kind of in trouble because he doesn't really have any alternatives. So if this is the character that you pulled and you don't have that artifact, you're just waiting around until custom group summon comes around, so that way you can put Summertime Emissary on it and get the necessary artifact that you need in order to play the actual character. After Pirate Captain Flan, we come to one of the best things you could have possibly pulled, and that is Phantom Politis. What a monstrously broken character in PvP. So Phantom Politis, her primary feature here is this skill 3, Phantom's Waltz. It decreases the amount of resources gained by the enemy by 50%. What a busted passive. So half focus game, so it means she's very good against things like Afternoon Soak Flan, very good against Sylvan Sage Vivian, Seaside Bologna, anything that uses focus, this character just wrecks it. Any character like a Abyssal Yufine that uses Fighting Spirit, character just wrecks it. And if you Malagora this thing up, you skill it up enough, she's permanently stealthed the entire fight until you hit her with an AoE attack. Every turn, she'll refresh that stealth, so it's super difficult to answer her. Her S3 strips your opponent's buffs, CR pushes them back, slows them, speeds and damages up your entire team, and that buff can't be dispelled. And also, once she has that enrage buff, the undispellable buff here, her S1 is a guaranteed dual attack with your highest attack character, and it also strips buffs. And she's also just ridiculously fast and tanky. So yeah, if you pulled this character, congratulations. This character is good enough where you could build your whole account around her for PvP. Ridiculous character. We're going to skip over Ainzul Gom because he's a collab character and therefore nobody can pull him, and we'll move on to Archdemon Shadow, aka Archdemon Mercedes, aka MAIRU. So this character recently got a new lease on life, and that is because of her exclusive equipment here. It guarantees a dual attack from the ally with the highest attack when you use her basic attack skill. That's akin to Command Strike from Adventure Raz, which if you watch any of my PvE videos, you know how powerful that strategy is, how good that synergy is. You can use her in a lot of dual attack based comps with like Commander Lorena or Terran Regard for PvE based stuff if you want. But the primary thing for her for PvP is also tied to the S1, and that's the fact that she has the very rare seal debuff. It's basically her, Naqual, and also New Moon Luna. They're the three that have this thing. You pick her when you need to get rid of a problematic passive, right? And if you use the Soul Burn for 10 souls, it ignores effect resistance, and then you get to just guarantee that it happens. And since she is a mage, you can wear things like Tehagel's Ancient Book to guarantee that that actually happens. So you pick her versus problematic seals, and if you manage to, get enough basic attacks here with Touch of Chaos, you'll build up to 5 stacks of focus. You could use her S3 Dissolution, defense break the entire enemy team, and hopefully clean up the match from there. After MAIRU, we come to Eternal Wanderer Ludwig, aka Cleave in a Can. This is basically the poster child for Cleave. If you want to be a cleaver, this guy is a must-have. He's not like super top tier anymore, but you could just build entire strategies around him. He is pretty much one of my go-to characters for Guild Wars and regular arena because he's just very, very good at cleaning up entire enemy teams when he is built properly. Essentially, you build him full damage with decent speed. The better your gear is, the more impactful I feel like this character is going to actually be. And as you can see here on his skill 3, he has whenever someone uses a soul burn, increases the combat radius by 20%, and also increases the penetration rate of his AoE skill 3, Can You Handle This? And it stacks up to 2 times. So essentially, you play him on Ancient Book, you bring him with other mages that have Ancient Book, or characters like Frida that have guaranteed free soul burns, and you just go nuts. And he has 2 soul burns, right? He's the only character in the game with 2 soul burns. So his S1 for 20 souls, how trivial, gives an attack buff. His skill 2, let's have some fun. This one gives him a skill nullifier, which helps him survive in case he gets countered, and also gives him hit chance so he can actually deal with characters like Afternoon Soak Flan. You essentially go in with a fast character, have them soul burn, like maybe a New Moon Luna or any other character that you want, Zio, any fast character with a good soul burn that's a mage, have them soul burn, it'll push up Wanderer Ludwig, and then he just dumps all your remaining souls on his S2 and then his S1 to get all of the buffs up. You slam S3, Can You Handle This? And it just wipes out the entire team. Super simple playstyle. Again, I use them all the time in Guild Wars and regular arena, and you can make it work in World Arena. You just have to pre-ban characters like Harseti and Bellion and just build pretty much an entire team composition around him. After Ludwig, we come to perhaps the most hated character in all of Epic 7 and one of the most powerful in Harseti. Whew, where do I start with this character? So her passive, the Law of Skugiheim. As you can see, it says, at the start of battle, speed of the caster is fixed going forward, and the speed of all heroes except for Harseti is limited to a maximum of 90% of Harseti's speed. On the caster's turn, combat readiness increase effects of all heroes is not applied. The Law of Skugiheim only applies to PvP. Basically, Harseti says no, you're not allowed to have speed. It's I go first, unless your opponent has 0. I go first, and we're just going to play this very slow, methodical game, and she is the tankiest mage in the entire game. So you just build her full bulk, maybe full damage, maybe full effectiveness with like Abyssal Crown, just try to lock down your opponent, and just bury them in either the defense break and extra attack from Gambit, the unable to be buffed and unable to counterattack from Checkmate, and just play her with a bunch of slow bruisers and slow soul weavers, a bunch of fatties, and just slowly grind the game out. Just one of the most powerful and most polarizing, if not the most polarizing character in the entire game's history. I think this is one of the best characters that you could have possibly pulled off of your ticket if you are serious about PvP. After Harseti, we come to Requeim Roana, which is a character that a lot of cleavers and aggro players use, and even turn 2 players can use from time to time. Essentially, if you have turn 1 locked up, you could take Requeim Roana on turn 4 or 5, or if you're in like Guild Wars and you're cleaving somebody, you could take this character, because how this character works is Boundless Obsession, her passive. Whenever the frontmost person takes a turn, she most likely takes a turn unless they have some way to reduce the combat readiness game. She'll essentially get enough combat readiness to nearly instantly take the turn whenever your front ally takes the turn. But outside of that, she can't really take a turn. So if your frontline unit dies, this character is not taking any turns. So if you have turn 1 locked up, this one goes right after it, and then use her S3 Eternal Lament. It'll get rid of buffs from the opponent team, push them back, and also reset their cooldowns by 1 turn. It basically completely ruins your opponent's entire setup, all their tempo for a match, and gives you a ton of breathing room in any aggressive composition, any cleave style composition. And from there, you should hopefully be able to pick up a dub. This is one of my most played characters for Guild War offense. You play like Newman, Luna, Eternal Wanderer Ludwig, Requeim Roana. That is a very powerful 3-man cell that allows you to just easily cleave most of the non-Harsetti teams in the entire game. After Requeim Roana, we come to Specter Tenebria, who's another character I feel like those of you watching this video probably know a lot about because she's one of the most recommended characters to take from the Moonlight Blessing. So Specter Tenebria, her passive here, Nightmare Illusion, makes it so that she is permanently stealth throughout the fight, and whenever anybody dies, she gets a boost to her attack and defense. Her S3 is a single target nuke that can also stun, that can be very useful in both PvE and PvP scenarios. And then her S1 Poison Blast is a multi-hitting move, assuming her S3 is off cooldown, which does good damage for PvP as well as a lot of PvE content. But it also has the rare poison debuff, making her very good for things like Abyss if you want to build her high effectiveness. Personally, I think she's one of the best PvE characters in the entire game. But right now, as I'm recording this video, she's very lackluster in terms of PvP. So if you were serious about PvP, she's not really the best. But if you still have a lot of PvE content to clear, especially Abyss, she's one of the best ones that you could have possibly have pulled. After Specter Tenebria, we come to top model Luluca, who is a very beloved character. She is super popular, and she's quite possibly the most difficult to build PvP character in the entire game. So how top model Luluca works is you're supposed to use her S2 victory pose to give buffs to your team. Then you soul burn her S3 demolish to get more buffs, CR push your team, and hopefully kill a key target, and that will allow you to kind of snowball the game out of control from there, right? The problem with top model Luluca is despite the fact that her attack is crazy high, she's made of paper. She's going to die in one hit. Like, look at this. This is 4370 health. This might be the absolute lowest health out of any 5-star in the entire game. And 119 speed, while fast, is not as fast as like Blue Peyra or Renak or any of these other really fast characters. Red Litica. They basically all will cut in front of top model Luluca unless you have absolutely insane gear and shut her down entirely. So to pick her, right, you have to be very confident in your gear on her, very confident in your team composition, very confident that you have turn 1 locked up. Again, character has a lot of fans. Character is actually pretty good. One of the better cleave openers, just very, very difficult to use. Like, the closest comparison I could give you to this character is like Closer Charles. Strong kit, strong players do play this character. Just, man, it's very, very hard to work for the average player. Next up is Zio, and if this is one of the characters that you pulled, I would be feeling pretty good about this character because I think every single person who plays Epic 7 that's serious about PvP should have Zio on their account, whether you're fast or slow. And the reason for that is this passive here, Supreme Authority. At the start of the first battle, increases combat readiness by 20%. Unaffected by effects that reduce combat readiness, increases the caster receives. So essentially, this character gets 20 combat readiness before the battle even starts and your opponent can't stop it. Translation, if you build this character moderately fast, he is basically guaranteed to have turn 1, and his S3 bow down before me, CR pushes back a specific character and silences them and gets rid of some of their buffs, then gives him essentially extra critical hit chance and some damage reduction. And once he has that buff DFI, his S1 is just a huge single target nuke. Again, it cannot be understated how powerful this character is, especially for turn 2 players. This is literally the I have turn 1 button. If your opponent is fast, Zio is the answer, right? If they are going fast and Zio is not banned, you can slam Zio under ban pick protection and just know, I probably have turn 1, unless they are just like way faster than me, right? Like they're like 70 speed faster than me, right? I probably have turn 1. And there's something to be said about that. Even the slowest players have a Zio built on deck for those times where your opponent's strategy is very fast, but also very fragile, and a well-timed Zeo just has it all come tumbling down. And obviously, if you're a fast player, why would you not want a guaranteed I go turn 1 button, like I go first button? That's literally what you want to do. You're trying to be the aggressor in the matchup. He guarantees that you are the aggressor. After Zeo, we come to Blood Moon Haste, who is one of the best anchors in the entire game for PvP. So how Blood Moon Haste works is he has this passive here, Grudge. If somebody on his team other than him dies, he will get this Blood Aura passive, which will increase his speed and effectiveness for the next 2 turns. And his ultimate, Moon Slash, right? It is a big single target nuke that does a ton of extra damage when he has Blood Aura, right? It kills pretty much anything but the tankiest units in 1 hit when he has Blood Aura. And if it secures a kill, Moon Slash revives his entire team, undoing everything. So essentially, everybody has to focus down Blood Moon Haste, otherwise he will just undo all of your progress. The thing is, he is the tankiest Soul Weaver in the game, so that is no small task. It's very difficult to kill this character super easily. You just build him super bulky, maybe with some effect resistance so he can't get defense broken, and then just watch as your opponents just try to throw everything into Blood Moon Haste in hopes that they can kill him. And if you build him on counter set, this move here, his S1, Bloodsight, great synergy with Celestine, which will heal you if you actually get a counter. And if your counter, this move can strip a buff. If you get a counter that strips one of your opponent's buffs, you get an AoE heal on your team in addition to a true damage attack on that character. So the character is just very frustrating for most aggressive players to play against. Essentially, if they don't have more or some way to defense break this character outright, they have to ban him or just hard focus him. And if RNG is on your side, it becomes a near impossible task for your opponent to win. One of the best characters for any slow, tanky player to have for PvP. Super, super good. Great safety net for new players as well. And finally, the last one to talk about here in the video. The man, the myth, and sadly the legend. The character that everybody in the community hates to play against. This is a character that you probably have potentially picked up from your second Moonlight blessing, and that is Death Dealer Ray. This character is so obnoxious after his rework in the winter of 2023. His skill 3, Cloud of Death, dispels 2 buffs from all enemies, and then puts them to sleep, and then gives them Venom, which Venom is essentially poison for PvP, but it also injures. Doesn't work in PvE, so this character is only good for PvP, but it's injury on top of sleep. And then he gets an extra turn, and then you use Anatomical Mutation to give Pestilence to everybody, which basically means everybody injures on all of their moves. And his basic attack skill is a sleep that also does more damage based on how much injury they have. This character can single-handedly 1v4 whole teams by just keeping them asleep and never letting your opponent have a turn. This character single-handedly makes Hellscaling Bruisers just not a thing in the meta. The character is quite literally cancer. And I mean that. Look at his Zodiac symbol. Dark Soul Weaver Cancer. The character is literally cancer. And to make matters worse, character is the second tankiest Soul Weaver in the game. Debatably as tanky as Blood Moon Haste. So he's a pain in the ass to kill, a pain in the ass to deal with. He's the worst. I hate this character. If you pulled this character and you didn't know about him, congratulations. This character is just straight broken in PvP. And that's going to do it for all of the Dark Moonlight 5 stars that are currently available in Epic 7. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them down in the comment section below, or just hit me up on Discord. And if you want to see how to build the light units, I will link that down in this video's description, or there should be a card somewhere on your screen now. As always, enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your week, and I'll catch you in the next one. Later now.